So unless you're obviously making something like a chicken cake, you probably don't need chicken in your cake, which is why I've really been interested to explore how many ways I can replace eggs in baking. Do you want to know the most extraordinary thing? You don't really need to worry about replacing eggs in baking because when you mix dry ingredients with wet ingredients, they tend to stick together anyway. So I have found personally that a lot of times when I'm veganizing a cake recipe, which I do all the time, I just leave the eggs out and it's really not a drama. But if there's specific things that you want to be able to, bind together in a sense, then there are definitely plant-based ways that you can do that. And they're enormously good for you at the same time. So you might as well get some whole foods into your baking regardless, is kind of the way that my brain works. All right, so there are actually a plethora of choices when it comes to how to replace eggs in baking. But what I want to do is just concentrate on the things that are easily accessible and stuff that keeps and things that you're likely to have in your house right now so that you can kind of get it started and then make it a routine if you so choose. All right, the first thing that I think a lot of people know about is chia seed. But when it comes to baking, although, chia seed puddings and things like that are just delicious, we want to be able to apply the chia seed in a different way, almost like a flour when you use it in baking. So rather than having the whole chia seed, it's best to grind it up. It's not generally the kind of thing that you just have about your person, freshly ground chia seed. So what I tend to do is do a batch and then keep it in a jar, and that will keep for probably a month. I mean, I usually get through it in that time, so I'm not sure if it would go any further than that. But a month, and then you just add that as you would an egg into a recipe. But how? There's a general rule for most of the replacements that we're going to talk about, and that is 1 tablespoon of the replacement to 3 tablespoons of water will give you the equivalent of 1 egg. So grind up your chia seeds, 1 tablespoon to 3 tablespoons of water. You'll see it. It gets all gel-like, and it's just this magical kind of alchemical transformation that takes place. And then you can just add that straight into your baking instead. With cookies, with cakes, with muffins, anything that's a little bit gnarlier, well, that's how I make cookies and cakes and muffins. They tend to be whole food, so I don't even notice that chia seed's in there. But if I was making a meringue, for example, no, I wouldn't use chia seed. So the other thing that you can use, and I think is really, really easy because you can actually purchase it already pre-ground if you don't have a spice grinder, for example, to do the chia seed, then you can just get pre-ground flax seed. And then you can sprinkle it on your cereal, or you can put it in your pancakes, or you can just generally add it to everything so that you're getting a good dose of omegas as well. It's so good for you. So the same rule applies. 1 tablespoon of ground flaxseed, 3 tablespoons of water equals 1 egg. And again, you leave that to sit for a while and you'll see it gels up, and so then you're ready to go. The other really easy one, but it depends on the flavour profile that you're going for. This is, delicious in pancakes and muffins and cakes in my mind, is mashed banana. Most people have bananas. So the way that you think about replacing an egg with a banana is that 1/4 of a banana roughly equals 1 egg. Now I know that bananas go from there to there. So if we think about an average banana, if we can do that, then you kind of get the gist that that's around about the amount of an egg anyway, from a volume point of view. Just make sure that they're not really cold. I kind of keep all of my bananas frozen because I use them in smoothies. So the idea of not adding really cold ingredients to baking still applies when it comes to egg replacers. Okay, that's an easy one, obviously, when you're doing any cakes. If you use banana, then you've got this fantastic underlying flavour anyway. Well, I like it. But what about when you want to do something much lighter? So say shortbread or biscotti or something like that, which yes, you can do as a plant-based version. that could be another video too. Okay, so the thing that I've discovered, and I make this up in a batch so that I can just grab it whenever I need it, is this much lighter egg replacer. And it's made from either, it'll make up 3 cups in total. It's made from either 2.5 cups of arrowroot or 2.5 cups of tapioca, which is what I've used, or 2.5 cups of potato starch. I tend not to use potato starch, but that's just me because I kind of find it nutritionally devoid, so don't really bother with it. So with 2.5 cups of arrowroot, then you add 1/2 cup of baking powder. If you want this to be for gluten-free baking, please remember at that point you need to get gluten-free baking powder. So 1/2 cup of gluten-free baking powder, and then 1 tablespoon of xanthan gum. And that's going to be the binding action. Mix it all together, pop it in a jar. It doesn't need to be in the refrigerator. It can just sit in your cupboard. And then you take exactly what we've said throughout. 1 tablespoon of this, boonk, and 3 water. Now, it may not be the most riveting thing to watch, but it's really good to use. Just make sure that you mix that thoroughly. It's a really active mix. So with this, you want to be ready to go. What I tend to do is add this, even though I know we all work with cake recipes by adding the liquids, putting all of those together generally, putting all of those together and then putting all of the dry ingredients together and making them friends. What I do is add this at the end. In the same way that if you ever use apple cider vinegar to really activate some of your baking, you add that at the end so that your cake mix is basically done, and then you stir this through and you'll hear and see the activation taking place. So that covers a few basics that I know that you'll probably have on hand, and if you have any questions, as always, just give me a shout and I'll see what I can do.